Who was up this morning at 6 o'clock? Who was up at 5 o'clock? Who was up at 4:30? Cameron Smith, you are the winner. Let's congratulate Cameron. Now, Cam, you were up to open your presents, weren't you? Something like that. Who, at this point in time, it's not quite 10 o'clock yet, who has already opened their presents? You know, at 8 o'clock church this morning when I asked that question, not one person in the room had opened presents. Sorry, except for one child who was under 2, who was coming along to 8 o'clock for the day. Who's looking forward to opening presents as the day goes on? Who already knows what... No, we won't go there. Social researcher Mark McCrindle, he says, each year in our calendar, we have some events that unite a family, such as birthdays and anniversaries, and there are other sporting events or public holidays. He must be talking about the Boxing Day test. It's okay, it's still going to go for 5 days because it's going to rain for 3 days. Anyway, other sporting events or public holidays that somewhat unite a nation or communities. However, Christmas is unique on the Australian calendar in that it simultaneously gathers families and the broader community in celebration. That's social researcher Mark McCrindle, just his observation about what Christmas is all about in our country. One of the ways in which we celebrate, folks, it is with presents. The giving of presents, the receiving of presents, the joy associated around it. You know, a few years ago, though, I thought to myself, there's something in particular that I wanted. I thought, there's no way known that someone's going to give me that because someone's not going to work it out. So what I did, I went out to the shop myself and I got it and I wrapped it and I put it under the tree. Has anyone ever done that? This is a trend that could take off. My wife just says she's done that a lot. Have you ever tried to drop hints to someone? Have they been heeded? Perhaps, perhaps not. Or what about Christmas cards? How many Christmas cards have you written this year? Who's written more than 10? Brad's asking, can you write Christmas cards to yourself? If you like. Oh, sorry, not Brad, it was Anthony. I'm sorry. Over 30? Over 50? Over 60? Over 70? Over 100? Scott Lloyd wins. Although his wife's saying he didn't write them himself. If every Australian aged over 15 wrote just 3 cards and you piled the cards high, can you guess how high the pile would be? 57 kilometres. We would be well on the way to the moon. Now, here's the interesting thing. Mark McCrindle, the social researcher, he did a survey just this year among Australians and he asked, what do you want for Christmas? 10% said they wanted clothing or accessories. So if you bought clothing for someone, you got a 1 in 10 chance. 11% said technology. Who's in that category? Yeah, less than 11. Anyway, but here's the interesting thing. The top answer, 24% of Australians said that what they wanted for Christmas, it was not about presents. What they wanted for Christmas, they said they wanted time with family, health and happiness or peace. And I just found it fascinating because I don't know if this is going to become a trend or continue because, friends, it seems that over the years, Christmas has become so much about presents, and yet 1 in 4 Australians now say the number one thing they want for Christmas, it is not about presents. What they want is time. Now, over the years, the nature of gifts has changed, as we all know. You know, it used to be one gift, then it used to become several gifts. Then there were Christmas stockings and other kinds of things. And then the sizes of stockings grew. And yet, friends, on this day, when All of those things and many other things happen. The number one answer in our country for what Australians want, it has nothing to do with presents. Indeed, 4.5 million presents will be re-gifted this year. We've even invented a term. I'm not encouraging that practice, by the way. Websites have popped up. I found one called, not that I was looking for a present for someone, it's sadanduseless.com. If you're looking for a present that you don't know what to get, sadanduseless.com. Folks, many of us have a busy day ahead. But let's take our minds back just for a few minutes, right back to the very first Christmas. This search for the most important thing, it has always accompanied Christmas. The same story of Christmas, almost 2,000 years ago, it's told to us in the Bible. It's told to us in several different ways. And this morning, what we've done in your handout, we've given you just a little section of Matthew chapter 2. And it begins with these words: after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of King Herod, wise men from the east arrived unexpectedly in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born the King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." Now, folks, my guess is for so many of us here this morning, this story that we come to this morning, this Christmas story that we come to this morning, it is somewhat familiar to us. But friends, I hope as we look more deeply, we're going to find some gold in this story that should just blow our mind. These wise men, they saw a star. This star, it was guiding them. And we, by the way, we assume it was 3 wise men, but did you know the Bible doesn't actually say it was 3 wise men or 4 or 5 or 2? It just says wise men. In many ways, it's beside the point. What's more important is that they come asking the question, where is the one who has been born the King of the Jews? Folks, we go back to that very first Christmas almost 2,000 years ago. And all the wise men wanted to do was to find the king that the star was leading them to. They knew that there was something different. They knew that there was something not just different, but extraordinary and special that was going on. They could have got all caught up with the star or any number of other things. But you know, here's what they did. They remained focused on the one that the star was all about. They remained focused on finding the one that the star was leading them to. They wanted to find the baby. And all around, you know, people knew that something special was going on. They were summoned by Herod because Herod, he knows what was at stake. Herod, we're told in verse 4, he assembled all the chief priests and scribes of the people and he asked them where the Messiah would be. And here, folks, in other parts of the Bible, we have all of these clues. It's like clues piled upon clues upon clues upon clues. The one who had been born is the King of the Jews. The one who had been born is the Messiah. The one who was to be born, we're told, Mary is told to name him Jesus. That just means God saves. In verse 6 it says, out of you will come a leader who will shepherd my people Israel. And other parts of the Bible, folks, they add to that and they say this king who was to be born, this Messiah who was to be born, he wouldn't just be the king of the Jews, but he would be the king of the whole world. Clue upon clue upon clue upon clue. And it all points to this extraordinary day that we remember this morning. The people at the time, a number of them, they knew exactly what was going on. Great signs were given just in case anyone missed the whole kind of point. After hearing the king in verse 9, these wise men, they went on their way. And there it was. Very often, folks, we look up into a starry sky and we look at particular stars. We observe what we're doing. We try to work out their kind of trajectory. Can you imagine looking up into the sky and seeing a star that was so clearly leading you to go somewhere? Leading you towards something special. That's what happened to these wise men. They saw this star in the east. And this star, it led them until it came and stopped above the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they were overjoyed beyond measure. Folks, when was the last time that you were overjoyed beyond measure? Cam, was it 4:30 this morning? For anyone, were you overjoyed beyond measure when you opened up something underneath the tree this morning? Anyone? A few people. That's good. Well, what did you get, Larissa? Another time. Folks, they were given this star. And you know, the star was there as a sign. We have all kinds of signs today. Sometimes you get rainbows. We've had a lot of rainbows recently because Sydney, it's turned into Melbourne. That is 4 seasons in one day. You know, bright, hot the one day, rain the next. They had this star that was a sign, a bit like a rainbow is a sign for God's promises for us. And you know, the other sign that they had was the sign of gifts that were given. Does anyone here like receiving gifts? Now, I expected a more enthusiastic response. Does anyone here like receiving gifts? Does anyone here not like receiving gifts? That's a great shame. I was looking to crash someone's place a bit later on. Folks, sometimes you give people gifts because you think they will like them. Other times, the reality is you give people gifts because that's what you like. A number of years ago, I gave my wife a gift. It was this pressure cooker thing. You know, it makes great curries. Other times, people receive gifts because it's symbolic about their position. For example, every now and again, someone is a dignitary who's visiting gets presented with the keys to the city as a symbol of who they are and as a symbol of the event. In verse 11, we're told, entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and falling to their knees, they worshipped him. And then they opened their treasures and they presented him with gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And these gifts, each one of them, they have significance because they point us to Jesus the King. And friends, later on, or perhaps you've even already started as you open up gifts, I wonder if you might take a moment to cast your mind back almost 2,000 years ago, because here is the story where the tradition of the giving and the receiving of gifts, it started at Christmas time. And so, friends, let me just say this, and that is, I hope you all have a ball today. And by that, I don't mean a bauble falling from the tree. I hope you all have a wonderful day today. It's great that you've started the day, and can I thank you for starting the day by coming and joining us as we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. And at the same time, let's learn from the wise men, because they would have said, all I want for Christmas is a Saviour. Everything else fades away. Wasn't that an incredible thing Murray did earlier? You know, on his shirt having lots and lots of different things, and yet everything fell away. How did he do that? Does anyone know? Does anyone want to know? Ellie knows. She might take money to tell. No, she won't. Everything else just falls away. And the one thing that remains there is the baby Jesus. Friends, many of us, we've crammed so much in today, perhaps over the next few days. A decade or so ago, we lived at Heathcote, and we lived across the road from one of the service stations in Heathcote, and they would say their busiest day of the whole year, in fact, is Christmas Day, as people were commuting between Wollongong and Sydney. That was their busiest day of the year. Many of us, we put so much into today, folks, and here what we see this morning is the whole concept of making room for Jesus. He was the one who lowered himself into this world to prepare a room for us in God's mansion.